Welcome back. In this episode, we're going to talk about how you can manifest great things in your life. Over the weekend, I listened to a 2-day conference arranged by Mindvalley. In this episode, I'm going to refer to Vishen Lakhiani, who's the founder of Mindvalley, Roxy Nafousi, who is the author of Manifest, Regan Hillyer, who's one of the teachers in Mindvalley, and apparently the new Jesus, who is Dr. Joe Dispenza. I'll give you the key takeaways. There were many other teachers, but the key takeaways and what I really got out of it came from these 4 people. Let's dive in. Welcome to Money and Freedom, the podcast about becoming financially free and building wealth for generations using stock market investing. Let's start with Vishen Lakhiani. He is the founder of Mindvalley. He had some really great points. He says that you have to pick one goal, and it has to be that one thing you really wanna do, and you have to figure out, is this really your desire, or is it somebody else's desire? And he said, dressed up in Gucci. So what happens is we get the idea that, our parents tell us, oh, it's a great thing if you could become a doctor, and then we spend our life becoming a doctor or whatever it is. So we really have to figure out, is this coming from inside me or is it coming from outside me? And his third point was, figure out, does it light you up emotionally? So that's tied together. If it doesn't light you up emotionally, it might be somebody else's dream dressed up in Gucci. And in order to figure out, is this also the right goal, he said, do you really believe that it's possible for someone like you to do it in that framework? And it might be that you say no, but that could just be a limiting belief. You have to work with that. And he gave a great story about when he was a kid growing up. He thought that in order to do certain things, you had to be black, because on TV, the good sports stars were black, the good, whatever, singers, Michael Jackson, Diana Summers, whoever. So he thought in order to be anything in the world, you had to be black, which is obviously a limiting belief. So you have to figure out, do I believe it's possible for someone like me in that framework, and why not? And is that really true? Is it really true? Then the next thing is, do you believe that you deserve it without having to earn it? We'll come back to that, because a lot of us, especially in our culture, when I'm saying our culture, I'm meaning the West, we believe that we have to work really hard for things, and we'll get back to that. Oh, and that's the next point. Do you believe this has to be hard? Does it have to be a hustle, and can it be easy? And this is really something that really touched me, because I am actually working really hard, which I don't really have to, but it comes from somewhere. We'll get back to that. He says, think 3 years out. Everyone overestimates what you can do in a year and underestimates what they can do in 3 years. That really touched me, because last year I set some goals and the stock market didn't do exactly what I wanted it to do, so I didn't reach my goal. And I felt really, really disappointed. And I was thinking, well, maybe 1 year isn't the best time frame, actually. A lot can happen in a year, and it doesn't always go after plan. But in 3 years, you have more leeway. He also asked, have you let go of micromanaging your goal? And, when you're manifesting, and what does manifesting really mean? Maybe I should just rewind a little bit and talk about manifesting. Manifesting is the idea that you set a goal and you believe in it, and you go for it, and then you make it. Basically, really, really, we're going to talk more about what it is. But the important point here is that you really have to believe in it in order to get it. And by believing in it, you are also attracting your goal. Great. He says, you have to ask yourself, are you ready? Are you really, really ready? So one example, if your dream is to get a baby, are you ready for what that means? The sleepless night, the, finding a school, paying for school, the way that your life will be restructured. I think every parent in the whole wide world can recognize that. For me, when I had a child, it was everything upside down. But I think it's a little bit, you can ask this in a different way. Because what often keeps us back is that we are afraid of becoming what it takes to get there. So if your dream, we don't talk about babies usually here, it's about money. So if your dream is to make whatever, 100 million, are you really ready to be someone who can handle 100 million? Are you really ready for that? Is there something else that is blocking you? There was another story, and I cannot remember who told it, about a person who was stuck in their business, and they had to go through all the ideas, all the convictions that this person had. And, many of them were good until they reached, she had to fill out blanks like, money is whatever, freedom, that would be my sentence. Wealth is abundance. And the last sentence was, employees are, and then she had written annoying and something like that. It wasn't exactly annoying, but annoying and entitled. And that was the block in her business. She was afraid of hiring more people because she felt like it would be a burden to her. And she couldn't make her business grow. So, and in this case, you would say, are you really ready for a business with 100 million revenue? And this person, in this case, it would be no, because she's not ready to handle hiring people. So you have to ask yourself, are you really ready? Like, what would it mean? What are your beliefs about that? We're working a lot on the level of what you believe. What are your beliefs? What are your blocks? And his next point is, have I ever felt it as already real? This is really important. So when you want something, start believing that it's already there. Start feeling like it's already there. This is something all of the teachers repeated. Some other points, quote he said, I really like, the more you give thanks, the more life will give you something to give thanks for. The more you give thanks, the more life will give you something to give thanks for. He spoke a bit about how to spend money. And I make a similar wheel dividing money into, so much on your freedom, investing and so on, and so much on education. One thing that surprised me in the way that he divided how to spend money was, he says you should spend a minimum of 10% of your income on luxury. Because it would tell your mind that you're ready for more. He had a funny little story about, even though that he has a multi-million business, he went into a shop where he previously thought he couldn't afford anything. He went back to that shop. He saw a beautiful sweater and he really wanted it. And then he asked, because in expensive shops, they don't give you the price tag. So he asked, how much is the sweater? And he was told that it was 1,200. And he was outraged, even though he could easily afford it. I'm not paying 1,200 for that. And he stormed out of the luxury shop. But that told his subconscious that he wasn't ready to handle money, that he couldn't handle any more money because he wasn't ready for luxury. So if you have a big money goal, and this is really contentious in a way, because people will say, if you have a big money goal, save money, invest money. And yes, you should always make sure that your expenses do not exceed your income. You should always be putting money aside for investing. But that doesn't mean you have to live in a very, very frugal way. You have to make sure that you're spending money on luxury, education, fun. That's one of my categories in my budget. Fun. You have to, make sure that you have fun while you are working towards something. So 10% on luxury. I really like that idea. Okay, next person was the author Roxy Nafousi, who has written the book Manifest, that was a bestseller in the UK. a little bit about her. She very touching stories. She's of Iranian descent, born in the UK, and struggled a lot with bullying when she was a child. So she actually changed her name from, and I cannot remember the first name, from an Arabic sounding name to Roxy in order to fit in better. She's still Roxy today. She has 7 points in how to manifest. I'll just read them and then we'll go through them. First is be clear in your vision. Second, remove fear and doubt. Third, align your behavior with your goal. Fourth, overcome tests from the universe. Fifth, embrace gratitude. 6, turn envy into inspiration. And 7, trust in the universe. Now let's go through them. She said, step 1 is to be clear in your vision. And when you call forth your vision, be both vulnerable and courageous at the same time. You have to be really honest about your dream and your goals. And one thing that was very important here that kind of struck a chord in me is, she said, don't be realistic. Don't be realistic. Being realistic is just part of your fear. And I have to admit, because I had a bad year last year, I've had such a hard time setting a goal for this year. Because I'm like, well, I didn't make that goal last year. Why do I think I can make it this year? Setting a goal this year has been so difficult for me. So far I got it like, forget about last year. And maybe set a goal for 3 years. And don't be realistic. Don't think about but this happened then and maybe it can happen again, whatever. You know? She also says, let go of the temptation of playing small. I really like that. I have been playing small this year. I have to admit that. She also says, always ask why. So if you're setting a big money goal or you want a fancy car, like why? Why do you want a Lamborghini? Why? Is it really going to make you happy? Or is it that you like the idea of what other people would think about you if you had a Lamborghini? So you have to make sure you set the right goals that truly make you happy. And very important is also setting goals is not just about getting stuff. It's about who you're becoming. So it's not about what, it's about who. It's about not what do I want, it's about who do I want to become. It's not what, it's who. I really like that because that's what it's all about. It's as we are reaching these goals, we are changing ourselves. We're becoming a new version of ourselves. And that is something that Joe Dispenza talks a lot about. We'll get to that in the end. That's just mind-blowing. She says, allow manifestation to unlock the greatest version of you that you can become. I really like that. Let's say that again. Allow manifestation to unlock the greatest version of you that you can become. So that means when you're setting a goal, you have to ask yourself, if I reach this goal, who am I becoming? Do you want to become that person? Good. Then the point number 2 was remove fear and doubt. And she says, this is the most important step. And I think a lot of us, because the stock market has been so wobbly, and we've got Donald Trump doing things we can't predict. Hence, we can't predict, what the stock market is going to do. I think a lot of us are actually struggling with this fear and doubt point here. So, yeah, how do you change it? I'll get to that in a second. She says you can only manifest what you subconsciously believe that you're worthy of receiving. So we have to feel worthy. And how do we feel worthy? And how do we remove doubt about external circumstances as well? She says you have to do the work. You have to, she says affirmations are really efficient. You have to use good affirmations. What is an affirmation? It's a sentence that you repeat to yourself over and over and over again. The opposite of affirmations would be when you're criticizing yourself or saying negative things. And this can also be yes, of course, it can be sentences, but it can also be questions. The way that our mind works is often that we're asking ourselves something. And if you ask yourself a question that will lead to a negative answer, that's really bad. You might have heard the story. I remember the story because I talked on the podcast about it before, about how I got fired on maternity leave. And the way that I discovered that my mind was in this loop of negativity. Why me? How are we going to survive? You know, it was really bad. And so you have to get out of that. She says, if you say negative things, it becomes the lens you view the world through. If you say negative things, it becomes the lens you view the world through. And you will constantly find proof. So if you are saying negative things to yourself, that's the reality you're going to create. That's how it's going to be. And if you're asking negative questions, same thing. You're creating a negative future. So you have to switch it around, say positive affirmations, say sentences like, I love who I am, I'm proud of who I am, and then ask yourself positive questions. How can I be grateful that this happened? That was the question I asked myself when I got fired on maternity leave. She says it's a great thing to use these affirmations first thing in the morning when your mind is fresh. Don't reach out for the phone. Like, that's what we all do. I do it too. It's like, but also because the phone is my alarm clock. So it's ringing, you're looking, and then, it's just, did anybody write? It's like, it's so annoying. So I've actually decided that I have to get an old school alarm clock. Actually, I think I'm going to get one of those you have to wind up because I don't want electricity or anything with the lights around me. And that's going to be my alarm clock. And then no electronics in the bedroom. That's how it's going to be. So first thing in the morning, say your affirmations. And every time you say your affirmations, feel the affirmations as well. Another little trick is, she says, when somebody gives you a compliment, say thank you. And then write down that compliment. Don't say, oh, yeah, that's an old shirt. Or oh, I really, it was with help of someone else, or whatever we say. We always reject the compliment. A lot of us do anyway. Step number 2, that was just step number 2. She says step number 2 has feminine energy. The next step, aligning your behavior, has masculine energy because it's about doing things. So aligning your behavior, this is where now you've set your goal. Now, and you have to take that person you're going to become when you reach that goal and pull it into the now and be that right now. Do the things that your future self would do, the future self that you want to become would do. She calls it stepping into the behavior of your future self. Life is a culmination of decisions and choices. So these choices are really important because they are your life. Don't ask other people for their opinion. It's a mistake that many of us make. We turn to people around us to ask them, what do you think I should do? Should I buy the red blouse or the green blouse? Or whatever. Should I take that education or that education? What do you think about this house or that house? Should I buy that house or that house? Or should I rent that house or that apartment? We ask people for a lot of things. And who you should actually ask, this is a good trick, ask your future self. Be in a conversation with your future, with your vision, with the person you have to become to reach that goal that you have set. Ask yourself, would my future self live in that house? Would my future self wear that blouse? Would my future self take that course? Or would my future self want me to take that course now? Because it might be that your future self already knows what you're about to learn. But, is that progress to becoming your future self? So asking every day, what would my future self do, helps you stepping into the character that you have to become. And you do that every day, and little by little, you're going to become that future self with every little decision. So don't talk with other people about decisions in your life. Talk with your future self. I love that. Point number 4, overcome tests from the universe. When we are manifesting, when we are setting these goals, believing in them, working towards them, attracting them, it doesn't mean that life is going to be super smooth. Stuff happens. Life is life. But you can view it in a different way. There will be challenges, there will be rejections, there will be upsets, there will be setbacks. It's the ebbs and flows of life. Look at it as an opportunity. Look at it as a test. Can you handle it? Can you step more into your future self in this situation? Can you be positive even when life is tough, even when, you have dark days? Can you believe that better days are coming? Can you keep faithful to your vision, even though there might be something contrary to your vision happening? That's a really good question. And I think, the last months with the trade war and the craziness, that a lot of us were tested in that. Can you believe this still works? Even though there's, some setbacks, some upset. Since then, a lot of the stocks have regained whatever they lost. But, look back and ask yourself, how did I react? Did I still believe in whatever I had invested in? And also ask yourself, where are you settling for less than you deserve? She has a specific example here. She says, if you're trying to manifest a partner, you define the qualities of this partner and you align your behavior, which means you go on dating apps, you're envisioning this happening, and then you meet someone, it seems really great, and this person ghosts you for 3 days. And that doesn't align with the quality that you had described. And when this person shows up again, you're like, yeah, hello. You're eager to pretend that didn't happen. But that is not the way to do it. You have to stay faithful to your vision. Don't cut a heel and a toe in order to make it happen faster. So you have to let go of what no longer serves you. That's something that Joe Dispenza talks about. And we'll get back to that. I find that a little bit scary. So I kind of stumble on that, like the idea of just, letting go of what doesn't serve you. We'll get back to that. Okay. Point number 5. Embrace gratitude. She says, be entirely grateful for what you already have. Make it feel as good as it possibly can. And appreciate life's small pleasures, all the ordinary things in life. And how do you do that? She says, have a positivity journal. Every time before you go to bed, write down what happened during the day in chronological order. And appreciate what happened. I woke up, the sun was shining, I made my favorite cup of coffee, the dog was licking my face at breakfast or whatever. I'm just making stuff up. And you will realize that what was a tough moment during a day was really just a small tough moment surrounded by a sea of beautiful moments. It was just a little thing. That will make you appreciate all the tiny moments during the day. It will put you in an abundant mindset. She says, and this is a great quote, for every thanks you give, you get 1,000 in return. I really like that. For every thanks you give, you get 1,000 in return. Point number 6. We're almost there. There are 7 points. Point number 6 is turn envy into inspiration. She says, envy has a low vibration. And most of us, we don't want to admit that we feel envious of someone. Envy comes from a scarcity mindset. But there's a trick to this. Envy is showing you something. It's showing you what you want more of. So whatever you feel envious of, take it as something to inspire you. Oh, they had a great vacation, scrolling on Instagram. Maybe I should put it on my bucket list. Maybe it's a place we could go. Or whatever it is. You know, I sometimes feel that some of my old friends might be a little bit envious of what I'm doing. Living in Portugal, investing in stocks, becoming financially free. Well, you could invest in stocks too. You could move to Portugal too. It's open for everyone. Point number 7, trust in the universe. It happens that we get really wired up about whatever happens in life, and it can turn into some kind of desperation. And one of the things we can get wired up about is that it doesn't happen the way you want it to happen or fast enough. And she says it's important to don't be too emotionally attached to the outcome. I definitely did that last year. I had set a goal. I actually thought it was a pretty reasonable goal. And it didn't. It just didn't. What happened in my life? Well, there was volatility also around the elections in the US. People stopped buying investment courses. They didn't, the market just kind of froze. And the stock market didn't do exactly what I wanted it to do. So my goals are still there, but I didn't reach them. Everything's fine, it's okay, but I recognize what she's saying, that I got somehow upset about it and a little bit disappointed with the universe. Like, I set this goal, I did the manifestation, I envisioned it, I believed in you. Sometimes I have the feeling that the universe is like one person, like God, like, why didn't it happen? So don't be emotionally attached to the outcome. It doesn't always happen the way you want it to. You can't force it, and it doesn't always happen when you want it to. She says, don't see yourself as successful or unsuccessful, or whole or real, attached to whether it happens or not. Great. The next person is Regan Hillyer. And what was so great about her session was she made an amazing meditation, which I can't repeat here, but it was really inspiring. But one thing I took away from it was, a lot of us, if you work with manifestation and setting goals, we'll have specific times during the day when we think about the goal and we envision it and feel it and all this stuff. And the rest of the day, we forget about it. So her trick was to set an alarm on your phone every 30 minutes and check in with how you feel. Like, check in, are you still like in your higher self or moving towards the vision? I thought that was a pretty neat trick. And if you're like, what do you mean higher self or high vibration, low vibration? Well, these are fancy words. Just figure out if every 30 minutes you can find something to feel grateful for. Feeling grateful is basically like such a trick, and we can all do that. That's not a fancy word. It's something that's, think of something that you're really, truly grateful for every 30 minutes. It will help you a lot. I have heard of Dr. Joe Dispenza before. I know people who've been to some of his events, and I have one of his books on my bookshelf. I didn't read it yet. I have to admit, a lot of books to be read. But I was kind of surprised about how he was received. People were getting impatient. I'm just here for Dr. Joe Dispenza. That's what they were writing in the chat. And even in the chat, people were saying, I'm so grateful to Dr. Joe Dispenza. I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for him. I'm like, what? And then there was this little intro video with people who were unable to walk, who could suddenly walk. That made me think of, what? Who is this guy? Is he like Jesus? Like, what is it that he can do? And he comes in, he doesn't look like Jesus at all. He's not particularly pretty. He's got sorry, Dr. Joe Dispenza, if you're listening, Pretty ordinary face, a little bit like a potato, but a lot of energy in him. I don't think that was fair, the potato remark. Sorry, Dr. Joe Dispenza. But, I mean, you kind of expected someone who would look extraordinary, and he didn't. He just looked like a plain person. But he comes in with a lot of energy, talks really fast, and some of it I didn't even understand. I was like, oh, he's talking so fast, and everyone was with him in the crowd and on the Zoom. I was on the Zoom. He kept saying, nerve cells that fire together, wire together. So apparently he's into this neuroplasticity, which is about, changing who you are by changing, I guess, your habits and the way your brain is wired together, these little highways that are created in your brain. He says your personality creates your reality. So he's about changing your personality. And in order to change your life, you have to become somebody else. This fits so nicely together with the idea of becoming your future self, which a lot of the people who teach in manifesting talk about. He says you have to do the work to change, not just the meditation. It has to be a part of all of your life. He also says that the best way to change is to go away from your ordinary life. Go away on a retreat. Obviously, he has these kind of retreat. He says they can see that when people go away for 7 days, most people will actually have a different personality. They will be a new person. They will have changed. The spirit of the event will stay with you. He also says this isn't easy. He says, here's a quote, the moment you decide to make a different choice, it will be uncomfortable. When you go from the old self to the new self, you have to cross a river. It won't be easy. You have to overcome a lot of things. And he says, people, when they try to change, they can hear themselves complaining, making excuses, and they do it anyway. He talked so fast, and he kept saying, come on, are you with me? And then everyone was like, yeah, come on, are you with me? He also says, be aware of the things that makes you so unhappy. People do things over and over and over again that makes them unhappy. He says, by the age of 35, your personality is like set in stone, unless if you decide to change it. So you have to break these habits. And you have to ask yourself, what would love do? What would abundance do? Most people don't do that. They don't ask, what do love do? What do abundance do? They are actually living in lack. He says, and this is really in line with what the other people said, you have to feel the emotions of the expectations before it happens. Like, you have to feel the emotions of what you want before it even happens. And then you have to teach your body to feel this way. And your belief in yourself has to be earned. This is something you have to work at. And no one's going to do it for you. You can't just pay the ticket for an event and then it's going to happen. You have to work on it on an inner level. He also says, you are greater than you think, more powerful than you could ever know. Isn't that great? You're greater than you think, more powerful than you can ever know. He talks about remembering the future. And that is, he said sentences that were like, yeah, my mind was going, I don't even understand that. Like, I need to hear that 17 times in order to process, because that doesn't make sense. Remembering the future? Well, how can you remember the future? It didn't even happen. But that's what he says. He talks like that. You have to remember the future. You have to decide what your vision of the future is. And no person, no circumstance can remove you from that vision of your future. So you have to make a choice. You have to choose yourself. Are you going to choose the vision of the past or the vision of the future? He talks about how, when we are in these bad habits, we are thinking a lot about the past. You're choosing the past. It's the past that will bring you pain. He says you need two things, clear intention And you need to get your brain to work in a more coherent way. And how? He talks a lot about living in the moment. Like, forget about the past. Forget about the pain from the past. Live in now and envision the future, of course. But, be really present in the now. And when you create something, when you set these goals, it shouldn't be, and this is something that one of the others talked about, don't set these small time realistic goals. That was Roxy. Don't set small goals, he says, and he swears. So sorry about swearing. It has to be so big that you think, fuck, I created this. It has to be surprising. And you have to choose you because no one else would choose you. You have to choose you. No one will choose you. You choose you. Come on, are you with me? He says, it's an opportunity. It's about opportunity. It's about who you want to become. You need a coherent brain and a coherent heart. It's like a Wi-Fi signal. He also says you can't look for synchronicity because that's not how it works. If you start that reminds me of, the point of you can't expect it to happen in a certain way. You can't be impatient with these things. You have to trust instead of being impatient and getting upset about it. You really have to trust it. The moment you remember the problem, you remember the past. Then your body is in the past. And if your body is in the past, you can't expect your life to change. He repeated this several times. Great point as well, that most of us are living a program. We're repeating and repeating and repeating. We're not changing anything. We're just living this program from the past. And we are biologically wired to fear the unknown. That's part of the problem. And how do you overcome that? Bring your body back into the present moment. And just doing that is a victory every time. Bring your body back into the present moment. Great. So he also talked about unmemorizing emotions and losing your mind and creating a new one. I mean, these sentences, these words are like, what? Unmemorizing emotions. So this is about forgetting the past. Losing your mind and creating a new one. He says you have to think, feel, and act like an abundant person. And there should be no person or circumstances that you should be afraid to master. You have to demonstrate courage in this way of living every day. And the universe will baptize you to demonstrate it. That sounds a bit like, there will be upsets. There will be, you will be baptized. There will be a test. And in order to do this, take time every single day to study how to do it. There is a future that you already exist in. And this future is more living, more kind, and more mystical. This bridging the future with the now, it kind of messes with my brain. Remembering the future. Well, let's all try to remember the future. I would like to remember the future where I've reached my goal. And I hope you feel the same way. This was super, super interesting. And how does this work with investing? Why is this even relevant for a value investor? It's relevant because investing is 80% mindset. You could say it's 80% managing your emotions. And emotions is really what triggers it up, what messes it up for people. People get upset when stocks fall. People get too wired up and too impatient and eager and greedy when stocks rise. And they go after the next big thing. And we have to manage that. And how do we manage our emotions? Well, it's about really, really believing that you've got this. You set a goal, you follow a strategy, and you believe in it. That's a big part of the work. And the hardest part, it's not going to be picking the investments. The hardest part is going to be sticking to it, believing in it. And that's why working with some of these more mystical ideas like how to manifest makes sense. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you liked it, please remember to subscribe, review it on your favorite podcast. If you have a question, you can always find me on LinkedIn. My handle is my first name, @BEILE, or on X. Thank you.